So something that looks really easy and is advertised as being completely free is actually one of the biggest financial traps of our generation. It's the trap of
buy now,
buy now, buy now,
buy now, buy now, pay later. They've amassed millions of customers and thousands of partnerships with companies like Target, Amazon, and more. And they're expected to keep growing.
Anytime a consumer is putting down their credit card and using Affirm, we think it's a good thing.
If buy now, pay later promises zero interest and no hidden fees and just 4 easy payments, and if it's really free, then how are these companies making billions and billions of dollars off of us? How are their stock prices going up like crazy? So here's what we know. Over the last few years, buy now, pay later services have exploded in popularity. The transaction volume alone has multiplied 20 times since 2019. And it's not even slowing down because as of 2025, almost half of US consumers have used a BNPL service like Klarna, Afterpay, or Affirm at least once. Now, among Gen Z, that number is even worse. It's 64%. So when you buy something and you're looking at the checkout cart, it can seem really harmless because instead of putting $200 on your credit card, you can pay $50 now and $50 2 weeks from now until it's paid off. But the psychology here is what's really important because by splitting a purchase into 4, it makes it feel a lot more affordable. And that's why people are now using buy now, pay later, not just for clothes or electronics, but even for everyday essentials like groceries and takeout. In fact, 25% of BNPL users in 2025 admitted they used it for food shopping. Now, on the surface, it looks like, oh, well, maybe they're just budgeting. But if you miss even one payment, you're hit with late fees, your accounts can be frozen, and in a lot of cases, those missed payments eventually get reported to the 3 credit bureaus, damaging your credit score. And believe it or not, late payments are surprisingly common. This year alone, 41% of users said they paid late at least once, which is almost half of everyone using these services. And that's not good. So in today's video, I want to show you the extent of how bad this problem has gotten. I want to expose the business model and show you how this actually works and how they're really making their money and whether or not you should be using these services. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Andrei Jikh. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for BNPL. Now, believe it or not, the whole idea of buy now, pay later actually started in Australia. Back in 2014, 2 guys named Nick Molnar and Anthony Eisen launched a company called Afterpay. Their idea was to take a very old school program that your parents or grandparents might remember back in the day, where you'd pay for something in installments, and they just brought that idea into the smartphone era. Instead of buying a TV at Sears, you can now buy their jewelry online and split the cost into 4 even payments at 0% interest over 6 weeks.
We built it, we tested it, and it became a very significant portion of our sales really quickly.
The idea, though, exploded because within a couple years, Afterpay had tens of millions of users. And in 2021, it was bought out by Jack Dorsey's company, Square, which is now called Block. And that was a deal that was worth $29 billion, which also happens to be one of the biggest acquisitions in Australian history. There are now 3 companies that dominate the industry: Affirm, Klarna, and Afterpay, which also became super successful in Europe. And that's why you're seeing more and more of these partnerships across retail stores and even places like Walmart. Data estimates show that about 25% of users have used these services to pay for their groceries in 2025. So that's how the model started and how it became so popular. But the next question is, if all of this is free, then how are these companies making billions and billions of dollars? So here's how it works. A lot of their money is not necessarily made from you, the consumer, but from the place you're buying it from. So let's use an easy example. Let's say you go to the store and you want to buy yourself a $100 Blvd. I'm sorry, Rito. You are now a taxable write-off. IRS has entered the chat. So here's how it works. First, you choose the buy now, pay later option when you check out. You then pay 25% of the purchase price, and they actually pay off your entire balance to the store the next day. The BNPL company then assumes your loan with all the risks that come with it, like if you decide not to pay for whatever reason. So that means you now owe money not to the toy store, but to the buy now, pay later company, which puts you on a 4-part payment plan with 0% interest as long as you pay off the loan in 6 weeks or less, or however long the loan term might be. You won't pay any interest on that as long as you don't miss a payment. It is then the retail store which pays a fee to the BNPL company for giving you that loan up front. And that fee can be pretty high. It can be anywhere between 2 to 8% of the purchase price. And that's compared to just 2% for a normal credit card. And stores, believe it or not, don't mind paying that because data shows BNPL users spend more money per transaction, and they're more likely to complete their purchase instead of leaving it in their shopping cart.
Selling is better than not selling, and merchants are willing to accept somewhat of a discount in order to make the sale.
So from the toy store's perspective, the BNPL actually pays for itself because they enabled you to buy something you might not have otherwise ever bought. And that's not the only way they make money though. The other way is late fees.
About 20% of our business today is 0%, and about 80% has interest on them.
Afterpay also has a pay monthly option for larger ticket transactions. Customers pay once a month for a longer period of time instead of every few weeks. There's a simple interest attached to these loans.
And considering that in 2025, about 41% of BNPL users admitted to paying late at least once, that's a huge source of income for them. So why would they stop there? That's why they're starting to offer longer term installment plans. Instead of splitting a payment into 4 over 6 weeks, you can sometimes choose 6 or 12 months. And those do come with interest rates that can be as high as 30% APR depending on your credit. And at that point, it starts to look a lot more like a personal loan or a credit card, which is exactly the same problem they're claiming they're trying to fix. But here's the catch. If you miss a BNPL payment, you could be charged anywhere from $2 to $15 just to reschedule a payment. But this is a big one. Some providers actually have late fees that can go up to 25% of your purchase price, which is huge, especially for bigger orders. Now, that's not the norm, but it can happen. So always check the fine print to see how they handle those late fees, because that $100 Labubu could end up costing you $125 or more just because you missed a payment. And that's just half of it, because here's where things get even worse. And by the way, before we jump in, I just want to quickly show you something that could make a huge difference for a lot of people watching, especially this video. If you ever felt like your credit is holding you back, whether that's buying your first house, applying for a car loan, or even just wanting a better financial option that's more flexible, there's a really great tool I recommend checking out called Kickoff. Kickoff is the #1 credit building app on the App Store, and it's designed to help you build credit safely and easily. There's no credit check to apply, no interest, no hidden fees, and plans start at just $5 a month. And just by keeping your account open and making on-time payments, which is easy with autopay, Kickoff automatically reports to all 3 major credit bureaus. And some Kickoff users who started with a credit under 600 and made on-time payments saw an average increase of about 25 points in their first month and up to 84 points after their first year. They help you build a positive payment history and lower your utilization, which are 2 of the most important factors for building credit. I know credit can feel overwhelming, but the truth is better credit can save you thousands of dollars in interest over time, and that money could go back into the things that matter most, whether that's your investments, your family, or just a peace of mind. And right now they're offering 80% off your first month, and that's as little as $1 to get started if you use my link down below or go to getkickoff.com/Andrei. Thank you, Kickoff, for sponsoring this segment of the video, and now let's get back to it. So here is the real danger of buy now, pay later. And it's not just the late fees. It's the psychology of how people use it and the consequence to their credit score. Because on paper, splitting a $200 purchase into 450 easy payments looks easy, but in reality, most people don't just have one BNPL loan, because the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that on average, users have 3 to 4 active loans at the same time. So all of a sudden, that $200 thing is not just $50 every 2 weeks. It's $50 here, $75 there, $40 for groceries, and all these payment schedules stack on top of each other. That's how people ruin their credit scores. If you're financing a fancy dinner and then posting it on Instagram, that is not budgeting. That's a huge red flag. That's gonna get you a one-way ticket to Caleb Hammer's YouTube channel. What do I gotta do to get on that? But the bigger picture is that Americans already owe over $1.2 trillion on their credit cards. Our consumer debt has never been higher. So buy now, pay later is adding another layer on top of an already maxed out system that's disguised as giving people more of a choice to make the same mistake. And here's arguably the worst part about all of this. Because unlike a credit card, where at least you have the upside of building credit and getting points, most BNPL companies do not report your on-time payments to the credit bureaus. So even if you're being responsible and you're paying down your loan, it is not helping you build credit. But if you miss a payment, that does get reported, which means best case scenario, no benefit for your credit score when you're doing what you're supposed to. And the worst case, your score goes down just because you missed a $50 dinner bill. And that's not all. According to Afterpay's frequently asked questions page, these services can even be used to assess your borrowing limits on a home loan. That's what's called the DTI, or debt to income ratio, that they look at. And even though this counts as discretionary spending, it can still be used against you by a lender. And that's the part most people don't even realize. BNPL feels like an easier, safer alternative to credit cards, but in practice, it can be so much riskier because of how easy they make it to borrow money. And here's really the main problem with all of this.
BNPL providers argue that most of their customers are creditworthy.
Afterpay actually over-indexes in the middle and upper income bracket. You're seeing like really strong consumers using the product.
So the claim they're making is that the people using these products are higher end consumers with stronger credit. But that doesn't really make sense when you compare it to the idea of what this product is ultimately all about. If someone can afford to pay for something outright, they probably wouldn't be bothered to split something into 4 payments, especially if the thing they're buying is no more than a couple $100s, right? And data released from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in January of this year showed exactly the opposite of what they're saying. Users are typically not strong borrowers. In fact, 2/3 of the people using BNPL services had, quote, subprime or deep subprime credit scores. The next recession won't be coming from student loans or subprime mortgages. Now we know the next recession will come from subprime cheeseburger loans.
Buy now, pay later can make products look a lot more affordable than they actually are.
Right. It's the psychology of it all that makes it appear as though something is more affordable than it is. That's why Klarna reported a 17% increase in credit losses from the year before. They said the losses were actually because they gave out a lot more loans in the first quarter of 2025. So of course they'd have more losses. But if we zoom out and we look at the big picture across the board, it looks pretty bad when you see that at least 41% of BNPL users had a late payment, which was up from 34% last year. Now that makes shareholders happy to see that kind of data, but realistically that's probably not the best thing for consumer debt. Even regulators decided to get involved, and they compared a lot of these companies to credit cards. In 2024, for example, they issued a, quote, interpretive rule that obligates the lenders to look into things like disputes and refund charges. But then just kidding. President Trump and his administration decided to cripple the CFPB, which means now there won't be as many rules or restrictions. And like I said, the worst part about all of this that people really don't realize is the big lenders actually know that you're using these services, and they will factor them into your credit score, to which Klarna responded that it welcomes FICO's modern approach to modernize their system, and they hope that someday these products will contribute positively to consumers' credit standing. But unfortunately for now, the data shows that these products are having the complete opposite effect. So if you made it this far into the video, here's my personal take on this. I think it's great. There are now more options than ever to get yourself in debt. Capitalism. But jokes aside, I do think that if there was some agency out there that cared about consumer debt and the effects it might have on society, this would never be allowed to happen and the regulations would just stop it. But it's here and now it's a thing. And I get it, for some people, BNPL can make sense. If you're disciplined, if you know your budget down to the last dollar, if you're the type of person who pays your credit card off in full every month, then maybe splitting a purchase into 4 payments at 0 interest isn't the end of the world, and it can be beneficial, but for most people that are financially savvy especially, I don't see them doing it. The reality is, the majority of BNPL users already have subprime credit scores, meaning They're the exact people who cannot afford another layer of debt. So to me, BNPL is not some budgeting tool. It just looks like another debt trap that's disguised and dressed up in cool branding and a cool checkout page. The data shows you are way more likely to miss payments and sabotage your credit score. But I will say, here's who it's beneficial for. Someone who invests in the stock market. That's who it's best for. It's great for retailers that want more people to buy their products, and by extension, it's great for people that are invested in the market. But for consumers, I don't see the benefit. At the end of the day, BNPL is not solving some affordability crisis. I think it's making it way worse. But maybe I'm just too harsh. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Have you ever used BNPL and what was your experience with it? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. I'd love to see you back here next week. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.